Pierce Brosnan is one of the performers who will live on in people's memories for years. The guy can do everything from his breakthrough performance as the legendary James Bond to his musical performance in Mamma Mia. Given his charming smile and composed demeanor, you probably wouldn't believe his life had such a horrible beginning. To find out more about Pierce's life story, continue watching the video till the end. His life started with tragedy. The gifted actor was born May 16, 1953, in Ireland. His father left him shortly after he was born. When he was 4, his mother left for London to pursue employment because she could not cope with parenting a kid alone. She left her little son in the care of his grandparents rather than taking him with her. Unfortunately, they died, leaving him alone at a boarding home. The fact that this was just the start of the never-ending string of misfortunes in his life makes it even more tragic. Reunited with his mother. Brosnan would not see his mother again for 7 years. He joined his mother in London when he was 11 years old. He'd lost all he knew. In addition to a new house and school, he received a new stepfather, William Carmichael. After seeing Goldfinger, his first James Bond movie, with his stepfather, Brosnan became enamored. However, the young Brosnan was more concerned with navigating the complexities of adolescence at the time than he was with playing James Bond. Struggling to find his way. In addition to having trouble making friends at school, the other guys mocked and tormented him. It didn't matter whether it concerned his Irish heritage or enormous height. Brosnan was unhappy for a long time, but he knew he needed to figure out how to make it work. So he discovered a pastime that would permanently alter his life. Pierce Brosnan was a fire eater for a period, even performing in the circus and for onlookers. Due to these performances, he was admitted to the London Drama Centre. Luck was on his side. Brosnan began working as an assistant stage manager after graduating in 1975. While doing this, he applied for a part in Tennessee Williams' play, The Red Devil Battery Sign. Fortunately for him, Brosnan was up when the primary lead backed out. Williams, however, wanted to see Brosnan in action first. He can still clearly recall the day he received the call. He got off the bus because it was going too slowly and fled to meet his demise. Brosnan was permitted to retain the central part because of his outstanding performance. He was catapulted into the remainder of his life by a fortunate event. A lasting first impression. When Brosnan realized that love may be found at first sight, he still performed in theater plays. When they first met, he was deeply in love with the Australian actress Cassandra Harris. Unfortunately, at first, she didn't feel the same about him. Harris remembers thinking he was a funny-looking man with a short haircut when they first met. But as soon as they began conversing and spent more time together, they knew they clicked. They could discuss anything for hours. Harris gradually began to feel the same about Brosnan as he did about her. It's better late than never, as some might say. However, there was one very significant issue. Love was worth waiting for. After a few weeks, Harris's feelings for Brosnan remained unchanged from their initial encounter. Unfortunately, none of them could do anything about it. Though Harris already had 3 crucial people in her life, there was no denying their profound bond. Harris has 2 kids and was married. Brosnan recognized the promise she had made. He was ready to wait, but that didn't mean he was giving up on her. The two were able to spend time together after her divorce in 1978. They began dating seriously and making plans for their future, which involved the whole family since they already had great emotions for one another. Putting down some roots. It was not long before the two fell deeply in love. Their relationship's logical next step was finding a place to call home and establish roots. They formally declared their love for one another and purchased a home in Wimbledon. They exchanged vows and were married in December 1980. Brosnan, who grew up in a dysfunctional household, valued family. Thus, Harris's ex-husband adopted her 2 children, Christopher and Charlotte, after his death. He loved them as if they were his own, even though they weren't biologically his offspring. Brosnan had everything he could ever wanted and more at last. Regretfully, the family's happy ending would not last long. The Brosnans were risk-takers. Brosnan's heart was content since he had what his boyhood lacked. He still aspired to succeed in Hollywood, however. He was fortunate to have a devoted and encouraging wife who thought he could. To make it happen, the pair devised a strategy together. They were prepared to go to any lengths to pursue their ambitions, even if it was a little riskier than they would have liked. Despite never renovating, the Brosnans sought a home improvement loan. Instead, the funds were used to purchase airline tickets to Los Angeles. It was a cunning but ultimately successful plot. His Hollywood dream came true. America welcomed the Brosnan family with warm arms when they came. When the actor was granted the central part in a series, his ambition finally came true. The central part of The Manions of Ireland has been written explicitly for Brosnan. The Irish famine, a time of widespread malnutrition and illness in Ireland, inspired the series. Brosnan accepted the part immediately without even pausing to consider it. He remembers thinking, "I've done it, by God." He had no idea that this was just the beginning. "I'm going to grab it by the throat and fly with it," he said. Brosnan was a fan favorite. Now that he was in America, Brosnan was becoming increasingly well known. Everyone talked about him because of his significant part in The Manions of Ireland. Brosnan gained popularity fast and was given a part in the well-liked television series Remington Steele. Brosnan was initially trying out for the role of the humorous sidekick, but the director quickly changed his mind. He handed him the central part when he saw how well-known Brosnan was. He gave Brosnan a leading role to solidify the actor's reputation in Hollywood and pave the way for future leading parts. However, not everyone thought well of Brosnan. The silent treatment on set. Except for co-star Stephanie Zimbalist, everyone adored Brosnan, but it takes work to satisfy or get along with everyone. Zimbalist portrayed the romantic attraction between Laura Holt and Remington Steele. It was evident that the two were at odds and couldn't stand one another. Fortunately, their distaste for one another did not interfere with their employment. However, Zimbalist and Brosnan only exchanged words if they enacted a scenario. They seldom said good morning unless they were being funny. Filming was very uncomfortable as a result, but they didn't give a damn. When Brosnan received a surprise at work, his conflict with Zimbalist was quickly put on hold. A long overdue meeting. Brosnan has experienced early parental abandonment. Despite reuniting with his mother, he has yet to meet his father, until he appeared on the Remington Steele set. It was an anticlimax for Brosnan. This image he had of his father needed to be corrected. He had pictures of a big, ambitious guy. Instead, Brosnan described his father as a man of medium stature, pushed-back silver hair, flinty eyes, and a twizzled jaw. Although he had anticipated a more intimate encounter, Brosnan was thrilled to finally meet his father. He did, however, react in a manner that few of us would have. He never blamed his father for his departure and had no resentment against him. However, he was forgiving for an exceptional reason. Brosnan valued family over everything. Many of us wouldn't have reacted similarly when Brosnan first saw his father. It's a father's responsibility to shield his children from harm, but he's the one who does it. However, Brosnan's stepfather saved his father. Maybe this is why Brosnan was such a fantastic father figure to Cassandra's kids. William Carmichael took over and treated Brosnan like his own. Although Carmichael was his family, Thomas Brosnan was his real father. Brosnan stayed with his stepfather every day when he became sick. Because family comes first, Brosnan had to reschedule earlier arrangements. He called Carmichael someone I look up to. He's a hero. A blessing and a curse. The entertainment business was exploding with Pierce Brosnan. His efforts had paid off, and he'd starred in several popular movies and television shows. His popularity skyrocketed when he was rumored to be the new James Bond. Remington Steele received more views than ever because audiences couldn't get enough of him. However, a show's chances of getting a second season renewal increased with its popularity. This is precisely what took place. Due to his contract with Steele, he couldn't seek other jobs until the show's conclusion. His ideal role was before him, but he couldn't seize it. Even so, his mood remained unaffected. His family was growing. Brosnan had just been cast in the part of his dreams, one he desired for most of his life. He's been given chances and taken away from them by his lead as Remington. However, Brosnan never allowed his professional setbacks to interfere with family time, mainly because it would expand. Brosnan was happier than ever when Cassandra became pregnant with their first child. When his healthy baby son, Sean, was born in 1983, the family of 4 grew to 5. Unfortunately, this happiness would not endure. Tragedy came knocking. Brosnan was living the dream. He had a prosperous profession and a large family, but things changed in 1987. Brosnan converted a business trip to India into a family holiday because he was so overburdened. Unfortunately, this excursion opened the door for tragedy to knock. They were meant to unwind and enjoy their vacation, but Harris couldn't do so. She suffered from severe stomach aches and was often exhausted. When they arrived home, these symptoms persisted, so Harris went to the doctor. Regretfully, the doctor didn't give the family any encouraging news. When Harris was diagnosed, it completely upended the family's world. Her cancer was ovarian. The house of their dreams. Brosnan's life has been difficult since receiving her diagnosis. Pierce tried to maximize his wife's remaining time since he knew she would not have much more time. Purchasing their ideal house, which they discovered in Malibu, was one of those things. Harris had chemotherapy a few days before they were scheduled to see the home. Brosnan was concerned that she wouldn't be able to visit since it left her feeling exhausted and weak. However, his wife was a fighter, and when she saw their new house, her joy brightened the whole room. They took possession of the home right away and made it their own. Brosnan felt her presence in their home even after she was gone. She encouraged him to become the actor he is now and significantly influenced his life. She made him a better person. Brosnan was devoted to her from the first time he saw Harris until long after she was gone. He acknowledges that she helped shape him into the actor, father, and man he is today. Despite the difficulties of cancer treatment, she never felt too worn out to counsel her husband. Fortunately, he followed that advice. He got leading parts in popular movies like The Live Wire and The Lawnmower Man because he listened to his wife. She wouldn't let Brosnan put his acting career on hold, even if he wanted to. He adored her because she was his biggest fan. "She's ingrained in every fiber of my being forever," he remarked. "Every day she's at my side." Meeting someone like that was such a blessing. Harris lost a 4-year-long fight. He helped Harris from her diagnosis to the end of her treatment, much like Brosnan had his stepfather. Although Harris fought hard, he was unfortunately unable to win. After 4 challenging years, Harris died in December 1991. Pierce was given full responsibility after the Brosnan family was devastated. He had to be essential for his 3 children, even if he just lost the love of his life. A loss profoundly alters a person's perspective on life. After that, you just feel more deeply, you hug more deeply, you love more deeply, Pierce said. At this point, Brosnan's days were filled with gloom, and his recollection of her was the only thing holding him afloat. The hardest decision of his life. Nothing in Brosnan's life could have prepared him for one of the most challenging choices he would ever make. Brosnan regarded Christopher as his own, even though he was his adopted father. Family always came first for Brosnan, as we all know. Like everyone else, Christopher struggled to cope with his mother's passing. But rather than discussing his emotions, he sought solace in the world of narcotics. Brosnan attempted to keep his kid from becoming lured into this world since he knew its dangers. Unfortunately, he failed and realized the hard truth. He was aiding his son's addiction by providing for him. Thus, he made a choice he'd never imagined having to make. A little bit of tough love. Brosnan tried all in his power to support his son. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink, as you know. Put another way, you may provide possibilities to individuals, but not compel them to accept them. At some point, Brosnan was unable to handle it any longer. He knew what to do, even if it crushed his heart. Brosnan severed all communication with Christopher for his own emotional and physical well-being. "Go," he remembers having to say. It's his son, and he hopes Christopher will eventually come to his aid. Get busy living or get busy dying. Charlotte never reprimanded her father, unlike her elder brother. Unfortunately, she didn't have the same time as her brother. Tragedy found him once again. Harris left an unfillable void in her family's life when she passed away. They had to see her suffering in addition to losing her. Bronson was devastated by the idea of repeating the experience with his daughter Charlotte. She died at age 41 after receiving the same illness as her mother. Before she became sick, Charlotte was his funny, wonderful daughter, according to Brosnan. It broke his heart to see another lady he loved go through what her mother went through. He said that sorrow becomes an indelible part of your psyche after a while, but tragedy wasn't finished with him yet. Sean's struggle. As usual, the spotlight has drawbacks, and the Brosnan family was particularly affected. Sean, Brosnan's kid, gained notoriety recently when his father posted a video of him on social media in which he describes his terrifying process of self-healing. "I was raised in the movie business." The good news quickly follows, though, as Sean reveals that after the birth of his daughter, he not only went into rehab and is now sober, but he also returned to school to finish his master's in psychology to help others with their difficult experiences. "I worked for a while and made some movies. However, I lost myself along the way," he says in the video, adding that he had left a long trail of destruction behind him. Brosnan has a caring personality. The death of his wife eternally altered his life, but he still had to be vital to provide for his family. 2 years after her death, he received an opportunity for a supporting part in Mrs. Doubtfire. Producers believed it would be a hit before being shot, and Brosnan was expected to participate. Tim Allen first turned down the filmmaker's request to portray Stu. Many adjustments had to be made when this occurred. As a result of Tim's refusal, Brosnan was cast as the antagonist and likable character, Stu. Is it possible that Brosnan would pose as someone like that? The filmmakers, however, couldn't, so they made all the changes. Brosnan was thrilled to work with one of his favorite people, but was even more delighted to be in the movie. Robin Williams, #1 fan. Working with such a well-known performer as Robin Williams made Brosnan very happy. He met Williams for the first time on the set of Mrs. Doubtfire. Brosnan would always remember the image of Williams having his makeup done. Brosnan could only see Williams' hairy arms and Hawaiian shirt since he was facing away from him. Williams then turned around and gave him a character-appropriate greeting while wearing all of Mrs. Doubtfire's makeup. "Robin was brilliant," said Brosnan, who cherished every moment of making the picture. "Sally looked stunning. We clicked like gas on fire, and just when he thought it couldn't get any better, it did. It was so beautifully mesmerizing." The name's Bond, James Bond. Before this, Brosnan thought that the chance to play James Bond only came once in a lifetime. Hence, he had to decline the position. Fortunately for him and us, it happened twice. After receiving an offer for his ideal part as Agent 007, Brosnan agreed to a 4-film deal with GoldenEye in 1995. In GoldenEye, released in 1995, he made his James Bond debut. People adored him in the role, and he enjoyed playing it. He infused the character with part of his personality, and it worked. GoldenEye made more money than any other Bond movie. A fluctuation in weight. For his part of James Bond, Brosnan was ideal. He was just the proper amount of sophisticated and charming. He lacked an adequate amount of weight, however. During fits, his tailors noted that he was built differently from others who had come before him. The lightest actor to ever portray Bond was Pierce. Brosnan may have overcompensated a little since he seemed to be trying to make up for this. He was working on his 4th Bond movie when the tailors discovered something else 7 years later. He had gone from being the lightest 007 agent that had ever had to the heaviest in only 7 years. However, due to peculiar clauses in his contract, he may have yet to be aware of these modifications. A small price to play. The role played by James Bond is renowned for his elegant appearance and well-tailored tuxedos. Brosnan has just been cast in his ideal part. He believed a peculiar clause in his contract was a little cost for such a chance. The filmmakers intended Brosnan in a suit to conjure images of James Bond quickly. But if he wore tuxedos in other movies, how would they do that? Including it in the contract Brosnan signed was the only way they couldn't have Brosnan and his tuxedos hopping from one movie to another, since he would be their James Bond for many years. Pierce Brosnan selected Cillian Murphy as one performer he believed would be magnificent in a future James Bond role. A second chance at love. Brosnan believed he would never be able to love again after the death of his wife. He thus focused all of his concentration on his profession and his family. Sometimes, however, everything falls into place when the stars align. When Brosnan discovered a part that would change his career in 1994, he fell in love simultaneously. Brosnan spoke to American journalist Keely Shea Smith as his North Star. The two fell in love right away, and following Harris's death, Smith assisted Brosnan in finding serenity. Smith gave him 2 more children, love and tranquility. However, this was just the start of their romantic narrative. Pushing himself to the limit. Brosnan worked hard to improve as an actor throughout his career. As we've already discovered, he quickly took chances to accomplish this objective. Thus, the actor started a production business in 1996, stepping outside his comfort zone. Irish Dreamtime was founded by him and his longtime buddy, Beau St. Clair. His gamble paid off, but required much effort, time, and cooperation. The Nephew was the first movie made, and while it fared well, it was the second movie that gave them the attention they needed. The triumphant production of The Thomas Crown Affair cemented their reputation in the business. Fatherhood looked good on him. Children always remember the events they have. Those with a bad upbringing often select one of 2 parenting philosophies. They may promise to be nothing like their parents, or they could be just like them. Brosnan had to go with the latter option. He'd previously shown his children that he was a wonderful parent and liked having a large family. Dylan and Paris, the Brosnan family's 2 kids, were born in 1997 and 2001. Like his acting profession, Brosnan prioritized his family and took parenthood seriously. That included publicly pledging allegiance to Smith. She was something special. Brosnan thought Smith was unique the moment he met her. Brosnan thought it was appropriate to call Smith his wife after they'd been together for years and had 2 kids. The pair exchanged vows at the altar in 2001. The famous Ballintubber Abbey in Ireland served as the venue for their wedding. This structure is more than 800 years old now. For Brosnan, this structure has a particular meaning. It symbolizes his decision to make a lifetime commitment to his Irish heritage. It was the ideal setting for the couple to begin their lives together as husband and wife formally. Their affection for one another has grown more vital over 20 or 23 years. In love, no matter what. Being married to a well-known actor, much less one who's attractive, is no small accomplishment. The urge to constantly look your best is powerful. It seems logical that Smith formerly had a body that would make anyone envious, given her extensive experience in front of the camera, but like many of us, she's struggled with weight changes throughout her life. Smith began to gain weight after having a baby, and it appeared like the weight would never go away. Depending on whose accounts you read, the former TV personality eventually dropped a significant amount of weight she had gained, between 100 and 120 pounds. The couple's love remains constant since they've still been seen kissing. According to reports, Brosnan even threatened to file for divorce if she chose to get liposuction. He never saw it coming. Although he knew he wouldn't be portraying Agent 007 indefinitely, Brosnan adored playing the role. He just believed that he would have anticipated the moment when the next Bond would have taken over. Before bidding farewell, he thought he had at least 2 or 3 more films to see. That's why he was taken aback when producers called him out of the blue. They said they intended to go a different way which no longer included him as their leader. Brosnan was surprised and felt as if he'd been kicked to the curb, but he went quietly and elegantly in a typical Bond way. One very sweet incentive. Brosnan decided to somewhat alter his acting career after being surprised and refusing to recuse himself from his role as James Bond. After accepting a part in the musical Mamma Mia, he moved from guns and action to spontaneously breaking into singing. He could have received the post for another reason, but it was distinct. Despite the all-star group, he had a specific lady in mind with whom to collaborate. He accepted the position without considering his character or the screenplay when he heard her name. He called Streep as the gorgeous blonde he had fancied terribly in drama school. Regretfully, singing is a must for performing in a musical, a talent that supporters believe Brosnan lacked. The critics were ruthless. Pierce Brosnan agreed to play Mamma Mia's Sam Carmichael. Before taking a good look at his job, Brosnan was one of Streep's biggest fans, but he could have been overachieving with this one. Being musically minded, he practiced singing by walking up and down the coast to prepare for the movie. Regretfully, it was unable to protect him from the harsh criticism. They didn't hold back either. His appeal was the only thing that kept his performance together, and they likened his singing to a water buffalo, a donkey, and an injured raccoon. Unfortunately, Brosnan's decision to participate in a musical wasn't the only dubious one. Fans began to question his ethics. Everyone adored Brosnan, the well-known actor. However, he made a decision that left his supporters wondering what kind of guy he was. Pierce Brosnan had a crucial role in the 2010 release of the political thriller The Ghostwriter. On the other hand, Roman Polanski, who we had banned, directed the movie. After having intercourse with a juvenile and being charged with rape, Polanski left the country. When Brosnan took the position, this was well known. As someone with a daughter, you would assume that he would have declined the job, but he said he appreciated the director's work and didn't let the rest of his life influence my choice. Hearing other people tell their tales gave him a fresh perspective on his choice. Looking back on his decision, Brosnan's been shielded from the realities of life as a woman in the entertainment world since he was a successful guy in the field. However, he became aware of the appalling circumstances as the Me Too movement swept across Hollywood. Women began telling them about the events that occurred and did occur, and their tales set your hair on end. Brosnan was compelled by the campaign to reconsider his choice to back someone like Polanski. I don't know if, in this climate, I would have made the same decision, the same choice, Brosnan said in an interview. Although he couldn't alter how women were treated in the business, he encouraged them in other ways. These are dangerous times, and the world is quite poisonous. Deep passion for activism. The well-known actor, Brosnan, is aware that his notoriety carries obligations. Like the other essential aspects of his life, he takes his obligations seriously. His wealth and influence have supported causes near and dear to his heart. After losing his first love, it should come as no surprise that one of these causes is cancer awareness. However, Brosnan strongly desired to support others and give back to the environment and people. The proceeds from the painting were donated to charities that help children, the environment, and women's health. He's even served as UNICEF Ireland's ambassador for 20 years. He married a passionate lady, and Brosnan is a sincere guy. Together, they were a power couple. Brosnan was passionate about improving the world. Fortunately for him, he could locate a companion who shared his enthusiasm. They helped one another through it all and did what they could to encourage others. The pair continues to work with many conservation groups today and has even made a documentary. The effects of experimental pesticides on Hawaii's ecology are mentioned in the documentary. Christopher, Brosnan's oldest adoptive kid, was complicating his efforts to be a better parent, husband, and man. Cancer won once again. Brosnan received further heartbreaking news while he was still mourning the death of his daughter. They were close enough to be family, even though she was an acquaintance. His close buddy, Beau St. Clair, died just 3 years after he lost his daughter. The worst part is that she, too, lost her battle with ovarian cancer. After 10 years, Beau's body was exhausted, and she had nothing left despite her valiant efforts. Brosnan lamented her passing as if she were his sister and referred to her as the sister he had never had. After 30 years of friendship, Brosnan found it impossible to imagine his life without her. However, he was sure he would never again take any of his loved ones for granted. His sons call him a dreamer. Brosnan's career has been filled with accolades and achievements. He has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and has 2 Golden Globe nominations. Because of his abilities, he was even awarded an honorary OBE for his service to British cinema. In addition to his performance, audiences like his appearance. Pierce Brosnan, now 71 years old, was named one of the 50 most beautiful people in the world and the sexiest man alive by People magazine. Until he becomes physically incompetent, he intends to paint and perform. His boys call him a dreamer since he often imagines a better future. However, he's proud to have that label. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon